Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so we did 7 days on the cruise on the water, and did all the short
Excursions and stuff, yeah.
So much fun, and then so up the inner passageway through Glacier Bay, and whale watching. And then we got off at Anchorage and took the train. So this about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took a train up to Denali. I spent a few days in Denali.
I've been to Fairbanks before, just around that area, but did not get to see the water nor Denali. I mean, I felt like gypped a little bit.
We
But
finished in Fairbanks, and I was like, this is.
it was a work trip. It's kind of just a big whatever town, you know, like.
Yeah. Fairbanks.
Did the whole family go?
No.
Just you and the missus?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. We
Neat.
dumped our kids off at the grandparents in Rochester, New York. So I got back. So we flew back from Fairbanks on Thursday. Did the red eye to Rochester to pick up our children and drive them home to New York.
Wow.
And so we started that on Saturday. We got in at 6 o'clock.
So it's Jennifer is going
And then today at work.
Oh, yeah.
It started immediately. I got onto my booting computer,
Yeah.
and I had people.
I don't know if he can push record yet or.
Well, you were gone.
Huh.
She got mad at me and yelled at me. People issues. People.
Yeah. Vacation's quickly a distant memory.
I know.
What vacation?
Immediately, like problems.
I think it's 6 o'clock, guys. Everybody ready?
Let's do it.
Good.
I'd like to bring the order to the Town Council regular workshop meeting for July 13th, 2026. The first thing we have on the agenda is the fiscal year 2026-27 budget. And Town Manager Harris, will you take over?
Vice Mayor, Council, what brought us here tonight was some legislative, as we talked about, going through this budget process of Senate Bill 889 and Senate Bill 447. The governor had already signed off on 889, and then there was still some discrepancies on 447. It did not pass, which would have exempted Buncombe County from the process of where they are, and allowed us to use the rates that were presented from the revow. And that will not be allowed to be used at this time. So I can go into detail on what some of that means for the property values, but what we have proposed in the new budget based off of that rate of using the rates from 2021 will be 41 or 45.5 cent. We were currently in this current budget year with the old revals from 21 was 38 cent. So it'll be going to 45.5 cent to equate to the money that was approved in the previous budget using old reval rates.
Anybody have questions on council? Do we need to make a motion on this
Yes.
one?
There is a motion for agenda packet, but the motion could read, I move the adoption of the amended budget ordinance for fiscal year 2026-2027 for the general fund and special revenue fund.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now we're on to Northridge Farms project, and I'll let Assistant Manager Jackson speak.
Thank you. I'm going to just introduce the topic. This is the large residential development, both single-family and multifamily residential project at the south end of Northridge Commons Parkway, which is just below the Hobby Lobby in the Northridge Shopping Center. This is a large development, and you did annex this property in many years ago, and as part of the developmental approvals, you issued or adopted a conditional district zoning for that. That ordinance is in your packet. The developer is here. I'm probably gonna go ahead and call on them to give you some updates on that. But there are, as you're hearing from them, there are two issues that I think are outstanding or deserve some more, discussion amongst town council. One is whether the roads, getting to the development and then some of the roads within the development should remain private, or whether some consideration be given to make those into public streets, town streets. And then that is related also to the Greenway connection that is called for in the conditional district ordinance that you approved. And so those are related, different but related topics. So this is Ally Seabaugh, who is the CEO. I don't know.
I'm the division president
Division.
for Four Stars Greenville and Asheville
There you go.
office, so, yeah. Good evening, thank you guys for having me here. I'm happy to talk about anything going on with Northridge. I mean, just a brief update, we have begun development out there, as most people probably know. We've been working hard to blast all of the rock. That is now complete for the most part. There may be some trench blasting here and there as we're installing utilities. Mass grading is underway. They've made a lot of progress on phase 1 of the site. They also have begun installing sewer, and then most recently had a pre-con to discuss when we would start installing water. Really hoping to continue things moving forward. We are still waiting on a few permits from the county as well as from the state to really be full steam ahead, but we're looking to finish our first phase of development in about 9 to 12 months to be able to sell our first lots as well as the pad to the multifamily component so that they can begin going vertical. As Jennifer mentioned, one of the things that still is outstanding as it relates to the Greenway construction, but then public and private streets, is if the town is open to taking any of these streets on as public. I stood before council about a year ago and made a request that the streets be public, and it was denied. No one was open to that happening. So we have moved forward with them all being private, and we are totally fine with that. The question that arises is that there does need to be a connection to a greenway that is being proposed to be developed, and in order for that connection to happen and for the public to be able to have access through this neighborhood, we would need to figure out some kind of either maintenance easement, access easement, or public streets, so that that could be an actual connection for that greenway.
Any questions of council for the developer?
So when we talk about taking over the roads,
Yeah.
are you just talking about the residential area, or are you talking about the area that includes the road that goes all the way from 2570 into, I guess, Walmart Drive, for lack of a better term to call
Yeah,
it?
so for us, we're really just talking about the residential area. When I brought this to council previously, it was like, we've never taken over roads that we'd have to access through private roads to get to public roads. So then we did submit an application. I don't actually own the roads that go through the
Correct.
Walmart area, but we submitted an application with the approval of the owner of those roads for those to also be taken as public so that we could address that concern. But from our standpoint, in order for that connectivity to be given for the greenway, it would just need to be the residential area.
So there is a public street commitment application that is in your packet, and that's the main roads that she's talking about. That's Northridge Commons Parkway, which starts off of 2570 and goes, essentially at that four-way stop, you go straight. That is Northridge Commons Parkway. And then the other segment of road is North Crest Road, which is, again, coming into the development at that four-way stop. You turn right, and it goes up the hill and intersects with Monticello Road. One consideration that I know not this version of council, but town council in the past has had, is pedestrian access to get the apartment dwellers on Monticello Road down into that shopping center. And so if the town were to take that North Crest Road, that segment of North Crest Road, that probably does give you more opportunities to figure out a sidewalk in that area. But so it's those two roads that are formally, they have formally requested that you take over. In similar situations, and you'll, I'm sure, hear from Angela and Eric from the Public Works Department if you wish to. Typically, though, you're asking that those be some core drilling, just to make sure that you understand what you're getting. There may be one problem area on North Crest with a little bit of a dip or a sinkhole developing. And so I do think scoping the stormwater storm system in that is a good idea, and you've got precedent for that.
So, one question I have is how old are those roads now? Do we know when that development was built?
I want to say it was 2014. I found the original plans and submitted those as well. It was actually an engineer out of Greenville who did them, and he gave me access to them. But again, I don't own those roads, so
Right.
I bought the Northridge Commons, or the Northridge Farms property from the owner of those roads. I'm not really in communication with him much anymore, but I think those conversations could be had, and, you know, we could see what he knows or is
Right.
open to.
So a concern that I have is the roads are essentially 12 years old. And my estimate is that they'll need to be probably replaced in 20 years. So that's another 8 years from now. So I want to think about what that would cost the town in today's dollars. But I mean, we can't project what inflation is gonna do to the cost of those roads. But I think it's important for us to consider how much it would cost us in today's dollars if we took over and had to pave those roads again. I would also be interested in knowing the price tag would be to build a sidewalk from, I guess it's the North Crest, going up the hill, down from the apartment area up there, down the hill. I'd like to have an estimate of cost on that as well.
So that actually, I'm told that actually may not be very costly. That road is really, really wide and probably has been overbuilt. And what I understand, and again, these folks can correct me, that there's probably enough pavement on it to just stripe it and put some bollards in the curves and just have, it may not be a concrete sidewalk, but you could put a pretty safe, good pedestrian access down there. You do have some sidewalk money, 250-ish thousand.
And that's
About
from the Maribel
250,000
developer.
from Maribel.
Yes.
So, the idea was to use that to get the Maribel project in and down through
Right.
that.
Right.
It is for it is to establish new sidewalks. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be in that area, but I think that's what was contemplated with that bid money.
And I know that, and I don't know if this road project would include that part of the road that goes in between Walmart and, I guess, the Dollar Tree that's there. Because I know there's already been an issue with that piece of road, with it alligatoring, dipping down, repaved, all of those things. So I would like to make sure that we do a good study to see the condition of those roads with stormwater, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't think that was one that was slated for takeover.
Mhm.
That's more of an internal parking lot type road. We can confirm that, but I don't think that road was ever contemplated to be taken over by the town.
Okay.
But to the extent that that is indicating perhaps some stormwater issues,
Exactly.
it may be relevant.
I think I'd be inclined to make the roads public so that they're built and documented. And then on top of that, to avoid any type of future bringing them in, like we had with Maple Trace or other recent annexations. And then that might also allow us a better connectivity for Greenway. And I'm not opposed to Weaverville Common Boulevard, especially if we get some testing and documentation. And I see that there's a roundabout plan for that. I'm curious if that would happen before or after
It's-
ownership.
And that is a substantial change from when town council originally approved this project. It was originally contemplated that would be a bridge, like an actual bridge. And y'all, that would be the very first bridge that you owned. And nobody was really excited about that.
Right.
But that was a change, and they were able to get a box culvert permitted through, gosh, it was a whole bunch of people after the storm, from DEQ, FEMA, Buncombe County flood. It was well permitted.
And that is
Um,
installed now, so.
Yes, it
No
is. installed.
bridges. In terms of the roundabout, that was was something that was contemplated that we would be able to do when we were originally trying to get the roads taken on as public. That's not something I have the authority to do now. So that would be a conversation with the owner of those roads and what would be my.
Oh, so the roundabout's not
I do
really
not have the
happening?
authority to do that anymore.
Okay.
So, no.
We don't control those roads.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I kind of had leverage before when I was negotiating with the owner in order to buy the
Yeah.
property, and so that was, some of the leverage I was kind of using there, but that ship has sailed unfortunately at this point. Literally, I think he's on a boat somewhere, so, but again, conversations we could help facilitate, we just don't have that authority
Right.
anymore, nor any negotiating power now that the deal has
So
transacted.
if we did end up taking over the roads, would the roundabout would be more feasible then, I guess, to happen? And is that something?
Be our decision to make.
Right. Would be that cost onto us to build the roundabout?
I think that's town council, I think they're not gonna, well, I don't know what Travis, and I'm assuming we're talking about
Yeah, we're
Travis
talking about
Fowler
Travis, yeah.
still. Obviously, if you're gonna take a burden from him, meaning you're gonna take maintenance off of him, they're gonna be more willing to engage in the conversation about how much they're willing to do. And if the condition, right, if the condition is we'll take the
And
roads.
I do know that there is a ownership and maintenance agreement associated with those roads that the Walmarts and the Hobby Lobbies and all that have been paying a percentage into a fund. So, I would assume that would transact
Yeah.
with taking over
Right.
the ownership. I'm not sure what that amount is, but that is something that Northridge Farms will be paying into once we tie in, because those are private roads that we will need access to.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with John's comments. Personally, I do not really like the idea of annexation of private roads. I think we should figure out how we incorporate that, into our maintenance schedule and be sure that our revenue is covering the cost of maintaining those. I also don't like the idea of gated communities, and this is just personal, but, I'm really, a big subscriber to, thoroughfare and access, especially with our emergency access. So, I agree with you.
So I do have another question.
Yeah.
So with the box culvert putting in, is that accessible now?
Yep.
Okay, so is the construction traffic now using that entrance into instead of
Yeah.
Gill Branch?
It is.
Good, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, because I know we've
I
had
know, that was.
some issues with that.
Those neighbors were very kind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yes,
appreciate
that
that.
is open and where the construction.
Great, thank you.
And just a reminder to council is that there was legislation passed where previously our road standards were beyond DOT standards, and we can't go beyond DOT standards now. So as they build it out, we do any change that will be done at DOT standards.
But we would have to do some core sampling on that road.
For the existing roads.
Correct.
Right,
But they're at a great spot. If town council wants to take the subdivision roads over, this is a great time to do it, because that way we can have Public Works go out and inspect at the critical milestones.
Mhm.
Where otherwise you're just trusting that they did it right, and of course, we hope that they do, but things happen, and when we get eyes on it as it is constructed literally from the ground up, we have a whole lot more confidence that it's done right.
Yeah, I support that.
I too support taking over the roads. I strongly support the greenway concept. I think, I would like to see if we do take over the roads, that the burden of the greenway does not fall onto the town of Weaverville immediately. And so there's a couple of items. So if we're talking just about Northridge Commons, the Northcrest Road, I think the path, like Jennifer explained, I believe we can restripe and have the access for pedestrians down there without the building of a sidewalk, or with just minimal improvement. So I think we're okay there. The roundabout, I assume that was happening regardless of what happened with the roads. I think for the betterment of that whole area, the roundabout's essential for maintaining the flow of traffic, both for the commons and all for the farms. And so like, if we take over the roads, I would love to insist that that roundabout be built. And then, the sidewalks are only on, down Northridge Commons Parkway, there's only sidewalk on the east side of the road, but only until that cross street to where you're talking, where you go up to the Marshalls and all the other. And so beyond that, there's no sidewalk. And so, and that's part of the commons property. And so I would like to insist that a sidewalk be built prior to our taking over the roads there. And one that makes sense to connect with the whatever is built within the farm's property. So like, it's not like if it's on the east side of the road for the commons, and then all of a sudden y'all build it on the west side of the road, that's potentially a problem. So communicate there and figure out where this thing's going through the farms, and then so that it connects well within the commons property. And maybe that requires then building sidewalk along the entirety of the Northridge Commons Parkway in the commons on the west side of the road. I'm not sure where your farm's path is
I know, I
going.
don't wanna misspeak, so I'm not gonna say, but I can let you know.
Okay,
I know.
right.
I don't have the plans in front of me, and I
Right,
don't wanna say the
yeah.
wrong thing.
So I just want to make sure, again, I want to make sure that if we're taking over these roads, that this greenway idea that we're all talking about is functional, and it works, and it makes sense, and it's not just like this hodgepodge of different ideas that we then have to fix or try to make work, and then we're stuck with a bill on that, so.
Yeah, it's a little concerning when you see the verbiage in there, yet to be determined.
Right.
You know, as far as the location of this greenway, and, you know, as I've said multiple times, and Mr. Endries and I have talked about this, I'm so protective of our firing range with the police department that I wanna make sure that there is not any conflict with the greenway access and the firing range, because that is an absolute taboo for me to do anything near there. So as long as we are in agreement that we will protect the firing range and where it's safe for the officers to be able to go out there and shoot any time of day or night, regardless if people's on the greenway or not, that's a big concern of mine. And so I want to make sure that is really well thought through with that particular process. And he said he'd had conversations with Chief Oberlin, and that's
Yeah.
great to make sure that.
Yeah,
she's
Angela
aware.
was there, the chief, myself, and we talked through that, and
Yes.
there was no, like, there's no way this is gonna work kind of thing. So everybody thought there was potential, so,
Mhm.
'cause, yeah.
And then there was some discussion, I think, around the width. I think they had 5 feet and we were asking for 10 feet. And
Right.
I don't know if the cost of impervious asphalt is greater than regular asphalt, and maybe that's something that Public Works directors can help us determine the cost of that and how that would play into that factor as well.
Right. Well, have you all did you have any progress on that potential?
Yeah, we're unwilling to change the width of our sidewalk, just because of where we are in the permitting process and what's been approved. We don't have the margin to be able to go back and re-permit anything, so it's going to be a 5-foot sidewalk that we will install.
You can't change the stormwater that's already designed to be in place, the constraints that we're operating under there. So unfortunately, that ship is for sale. But I think as we probably discussed previously, you know, obviously if control is ceded to municipalities or relates to the right of way, ultimately, you know, what happens there is, you know, something that you have the liberty to address long term. But I agree with you, there needs to be, you know, continuity, right, between
So I have a question. I'm assuming the stormwater calculations were based on impervious paving for the trail. I think what I've heard is there's a question about an addition or an expansion using pervious paving.
Or the entirety being pervious and doing away with the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
How does that change the stormwater calculation?
Yeah, so no structure is 100% pervious, right? So it changes because you have to take what percent is pervious versus impervious and redo all of the calculations. And so it just affects exactly how much stormwater you have to capture versus.
So it seems like with and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like with the original conditional zoning agreement that was made with the town, apparently there was, some non-action in terms of engaging the town with a discussion about what was this trail supposed to look like. The to be determined in the ordinance was to be determined, but it was not.
So unfortunately, I took over after it had already been approved by the town. So I wasn't involved in any of those conversations. I don't know if the previous developer had those or not, but the plans I received were approved by the town. But that was, again, I took this over from the previous developer, so.
The Weaverville approved the plans?
Uh-huh. And so the only re-permitting I did was with the storm in order to change the bridge to culverts, because I was told that the town was really against the bridges, and so I was like, and we started that re-permitting in August of last year, and we still do not have Buncombe County stormwater approval, which is why I'm pushing back on any more changes, because I made the change from bridge to culvert in hopes of getting public roads, and then am literally eating dollars every minute. And so any change to these previously approved plans just costs more and more time and dollars, and hope that Buncombe County will agree and approve and.
Yeah, no, with full appreciation, but it doesn't seem like, from, again, as an observer, there's been
I think it was missed, honestly. I mean, coming
That's what
in
we're
late to the
feeling.
game and taking over previously approved plans, I think it was missed. But the plans were approved, and so now they are vested. So unless there's substantial non-compliance, we do have vested rights to these plans that were approved.
So is there not a scenario where you could do just a naturalized, or a path through a naturalized area, green space that doesn't really?
I think Mark's concern was bikes, so I think naturalized path wasn't gonna get what he was trying to achieve. But I definitely think in terms of amount of right-of-way that is there, we could put some kind of mulch or, but for an actual path that's transversable by a bicycle, that is a different surface that I think is more difficult to accomplish.
I think what John was getting at, leave the sidewalk as is, but
Yeah.
in an alternate location, which I believe we had this discussion previous, and there's really no other
Location.
No other
Yeah.
location to reroute a path.
Right, yeah. We talked about the Duke easement that runs through there, but Duke is very difficult about doing any work in their easement. And that is like a mountain. I mean,
Yeah, it's
that's a
really
hike
hilly.
for
They didn't-
a mountain
they
bike
didn't
that
rate
needs to get up
It's very
there,
steep.
right.
Duke
so-
won't even let Duke put
Yes.
their stuff in there, so
In there.
Duke overhead won't let Duke underground their lines within the same Duke easement, so that's
We're
what
kind of
that
limited there.
Yeah, I'm becoming grouchy, Phil, from Weaverville. But, there seems to be another remorse story
Yeah.
that
Well-
what we could have had, but we are not going to get.
So the interesting thing here is that with the conditional zoning district, we're promised a path regardless of road ownership. So if we, I guess, if we're discontent with the 5-foot sidewalk, and that's what we're faced with having, we don't have to feel obligated to take over the roads, and we're still more or less promised that, and it would happen through like a management easement of some sort.
Yes.
I had hoped that with the sort of the enticement of being able to take over the roads, that there's still time that we could improve things.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's not possible. So, I mean,
So, I'm always an optimist, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to be in this business, and so I think
have that option if you don't run right away going forward. So, time is on the municipality side, right, to decide ultimately what you want there, and to go through whatever process may need to take place. And it may take a while if you're dealing with Buncombe County, because that's in our experience, right? But you have time on your side. Where we don't. So, we're marching against the schedule and dollars and returns and other obligations that we have. So there's something to that I think you guys should consider. The second piece of it is, and I did agree that we would do a study to take a look at, I think this is where maybe John was going earlier, which is, okay, you did all your calculations based on a, impervious surface of 5 feet wide, sidewalk, or whatever. What would it be if it was impervious, right? And to Ally's point is, there's a different calculation that goes on there. It's something less than, but, maybe it's less, it's 5 feet of concrete, but that maybe is 7 feet of some other type of material, right? It equates to the same stormwater discharge, right?
Right.
So, we haven't done that analysis yet because that's gonna, again, require a lot of time and money, and, until we understand that council is on board with this concept of taking over the roads, then we obviously weren't gonna go spend money on something that you weren't interested in. So if the disposition of the council is, yeah, we're in favor of taking over the roads, and you're on board with that, then I'm willing to go spend some dollars to
Andrew is willing.
From DR organization, she can, I can, and I'm willing to spend some of that money to, see where that leads and what the opportunities are. There may be zero, we may come back and say, we're kind of stuck still here, but, there may be alternative materials that we can consider, and maybe it's too expensive for us to put in place today, but it could be something that you guys can plan for. You can take that due diligence and plan for in the long term, right? So I think there's opportunity for us to continue to have that conversation and move this forward, but we just need to understand that, you guys are committed to this idea of public roads, and then we will commit to spending some additional dollars to vet that out.
And I don't want to be not the optimist. I know it was a different council, but I did stand here a year ago and commit $35,000 to a traffic study and a roundabout design and upgrade bridges to culverts at the tune of $1 million, all because I thought that's what council wanted to get public roads, and it was like adamantly, no, we don't want these as public. And so that's where I come from, is like, I can't spend any more dollars on studies and investigations and changes and things if this isn't the path that we're going. So
Understood.
Andrew's a little more optimistic, but that's where a little bit of my hesitation comes from, is that we did do a lot of work 12 months ago, thinking we were checking the right boxes, and it sounds like there's still more that we missed, which I understand. Obviously, different people have different, thoughts and opinions on what they want to see out there, but that's kind of where my hesitancy comes in, is that a lot of money was spent to design the roundabout, to, do the studies to change the bridges to culverts. And
Good news is we have a roundabout study.
we have a study, we have a design, we know it fits. I mean, we have already done that, and, but.
So it's not all for nothing, right? There has been some benefit to that exercise.
Well,
assuming
I think it's very apparent to this entire community that something's got to change over there, because we haven't even opened up the neighborhood yet, and traffic is already backed up quite a ways on that
Right.
that stretch of
That's right.
road. And so we really need to do a good study of some type to see how we can alleviate some of the backups that are
And
there.
I have that traffic study I previously submitted. I can submit it again, for you guys to review, because I did
I
pay
think
for
that would
that
be
and have
very
that done.
helpful.
That is what was recommended. It seems like the previous developer did provide the spacing in the design. It like fits perfectly, so it seems like it was contemplated. At some point, it just never,
Yeah.
got installed. So, it wouldn't be a ton of work. I think there was an example of a roundabout, maybe on Travelers Rest, that was like, the traffic engineer gave me and said this would fit,
Mhm.
kind of perfectly. So, I can share all of that again. It's 12 months
I would
old, but-
appreciate that, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I think,
I think we also agreed that, and I just volunteered this, maybe I should shut my mouth, but.
Andrew has a large checkbook.
Yeah, but, we also agreed that we would look at the intersection with, the parcel to our south, right, which is where the shooting range is. And we understand that's a very important, red zone, right, in terms of, we wanna make sure that that stays there and that there's no, contamination between the public, right, and that, the use of that facility. We wanna make sure there's clear delineated lines and safety is a priority, right? So, we agreed that we'd also have our engineers kind of take a look at how do you get from, our property line
And I also know that there is a lot of interest in the parcel to the northwest, I think is currently for sale, the 20-some acres, and that, you know, potentially route being tied in. I know Gill Branch is currently gated and not an option for people to go. And then I also believe that the woman to the south of the shooting range is talking about selling her property. So I think there's other options too, that if we can figure out what we want, how all of that can work together, you know, long term. We're just knee deep currently in this one, but I think there's ways that we can connect.
It seems that the council is open to taking on these as public roads, so I'd like to see if you guys would come back with some options for us that might be feasible for some type of walking, multimodal path through the property, that would work within the development
Okay.
and connect.
Be great.
So is there good, just for the minutes, is there good consensus among at least the 5 of you? I'm seeing Phil.
I think we need to continue to look at it. I don't think we're ready to make an absolute
Under,
decision. Yeah.
to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
is what-
Yes.
not-
Absolutely,
not-
yeah.
Not
Yeah.
to sign off on it, but to
Yes.
continue that conversation in the
Yeah.
hopes of coming up with a good solution.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you for
Appreciate that.
coming. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I will note that Jeff McKenna and Rachel Bronson are here. They're both on the Active Weaverville committee. There is a position statement that they've included or included in your packet. I don't know whether you wish to hear from them. Mark's also been actively involved in that. My guess is there'll be other opportunities for them to speak with you, but they are here.
Well, if there's something they want to say, I'm happy to hear it.
Um,
Do you have anything to
yeah,
add?
let's hear it.
Yeah, option 3. right? Option 3.
Good evening. I don't really have anything to add related to this conversation. I appreciate the time, the energy, the thought. I know a lot has been put into this at this point. I will say one clarifying point, because I was sitting here and I do this work. North Crest, you all talked earlier about North Crest and a pedestrian connection on North Crest. Flexible delineators and striping could be a very low-cost option. The thing I will say is to cross Monticello, which will
Absolutely
unlock.
different.
Yeah, that will cost more.
Yes.
And for that crossing to happen, to really bring those pedestrians in from all of that multifamily on the other side of Monticello, DOT will require ramps, a landing pad, crossing, and they will not pay for that. So the $250,000 that was discussed won't go very far when it comes to a crossing. But I really do appreciate the innovation and the idea of a low-cost connection on North Crest. I think that's a really great idea. It's an overbuilt road. It's a great possibility. So that was not related. I just appreciate the time and all the thought that you all put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thanks,
think it
Rachel.
is important that we do look at a safe pathway for those folks coming from Maryville across Monticello, like you said. And I think it's something we are all willing to look into without.
I fully expect that that'll be part of the sidewalk scope on
Yes.
our engineering work coming up, because I think everybody was committed to getting at least the Maribel project, maybe more along that road across the street and into that development.
Correct.
So, and the good news is we do have at least a bit of a start on some money to do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 4, Merchants Alley. Manager Harris?
Vice Mayor, Council, some discussion on Merchants Alley is some of the challenges, and we've gotten several complaints the past couple weeks from business owners about the street being blocked and people being able to access the parking lots there with deliveries. So trying to look at some options of parking basically occurring in the roadway as that thoroughfare is through there. And then as the delivery driver comes up, then if they stop in the roadway, then it prohibits any other passenger vehicle from moving through there. So as far as businesses using that parking space, as far as the property on the lot lines, we've got some maps and things that can go through the lot lines of where that property actually stops at. We've met with a business owner there looking at the stakes in the roadway of having that property surveyed from the laundromat aspect of where that property begins and ends on both sides of the roadway there. So some of the challenges being is, probably about a month ago, I walked up there to try to observe it, and our sanitation crews had about a 30-minute delay on being able to complete that section of route, waiting on a delivery truck that was parked in the roadway delivery, because there is sanitation cans and totes behind the business there. So for them to be able to access that, that created a delay there as well. Police department is enforcing parking violations and other things through education to get compliance, as well as when it gets to the point of a citation being issued, then they are issuing citations for people not parking in designated parking spaces. Well, we've got the same issue occurring there in that aspect, along with the pathway being blocked for services being delivered, as well as emergency access. We looked at several things to try to consider as we move forward with this on creating a designated delivery zone area. For example, apparently there used to be one on the side where the pet place is, but if you use that currently, then you're blocking the stop signs view of people trying to get around, whether it be a tractor trailer or just a box truck parked there. So looking at different avenues to be able to assist the business owners on their deliveries. We don't want to take that option away, but we still got to have a clear path for emergency access response in that. Again, as late as last week, we walked down there and dealing with some concerns and complaints that vehicle traffic couldn't get through. The fire marshal came through, had basically about 3-inch clearance on each side of his vehicle trying to get through, and he was on a smaller vehicle. So, I mean, that's on a pickup vehicle. So, I mean, there are some concerns with, because once those vehicles pull into, as you can see from your slides there, once they pull in behind those businesses there, that is actually parked out in the roadway. So as far, and we can go back and restripe different things to distinguish what is the roadway, what is curbage, where is the side roadway ends in that aspect. But as you can see from the pictures attached and pictures in your packet, it does create a unique challenge. So we're just looking for some guidance to work with the business owners there. And the churches several years ago did set aside, I think, roughly 60 parking spaces for downtown businesses, employees to be able to park at the church spots that are marked off for businesses only, their employees. So that does free up some of that aspect, because I know the concern will be where would everybody park at as far as business owners go and employees. So those arrangements have been made. We did reach back out through the churches last week to confirm that those spots were still set aside. We've got members from Public Works and Police Department here tonight if you would like to hear from any of those and their concerns or challenges as well. And I'll turn it over to council for any discussion.
Yes, I would love to hear some of the challenges that the police department has had with parking in that area and some of the history that's gone into that. So do you guys mind?
And we've got Captain Nick Shea and Sergeant Andy Mace. Andy is our Community Resource Officer, and Captain Shea is over the Operations Patrol Division.
The chief is in a conference this week, so I'm very sorry you are stuck with. Just to give you kind of a heads up with it, Merchants Alley, as you can see in the picture, it's a pretty big issue. We've been getting blown up with it on the patrol level pretty often here over the past couple of weeks, especially. It seems to have greatly increased, and we're kind of limited in the options that we have here. We can try to ticket our way out of this stuff. Nobody likes parking tickets. That's the #1 complaint that I get as a patrol captain from people, is parking ticket complaints every day. If that's something you'll want to do, it's an option. But I don't think that that's really going to be probably a good long-term solution here, just with the infrastructure changes and with the amount of traffic that's been coming through Merchants Alley. Merchants Alley's been pretty much self-sufficient as long as I've been here, since 2014, and he's got almost 30 years of service, and it's been pretty low-key from what I understand.
Yeah, in years past, it hasn't been that big of an issue, but we haven't had, the changes of the traffic, and, we've got new business owners, we've got new, different businesses, different business owners, different, even with Dennis, who's been there a while now, he's working off of both sides of the road and everything now. So there's been quite a bit that's changed over just the past couple of years, from my 26 years of being here. But in the past, it has not been as big an issue as it seemed to have been the last couple of years.
So it's my understanding that this is still a two-way street, that you can go up or down Martins Alley, correct? And so it's a very narrow road anyway, and then if you put cars on even just one side of the road, is there room for two cars to pass if they're going in opposite directions on that?
I would say no, it's extremely tight unless you drive something the size of a golf cart.
Okay.
Or something along those lines.
Mhm.
It's a really tough position. James and I were looking at the plans from way back in, I think, 1918, whenever that was initially built and planned and whatever, and it just isn't equipped to really handle what it's doing now, in my opinion. We can take those enforcement actions and stuff. We're more than happy to do that. It just depends on kind of what you guys see for the future there. Historically, like I said, Merchants Alley has always kind of more or less took care of itself. Our parking complaints were the plaza, Main Street, your major kind of traffic thoroughfares and stuff like that, where we see a greater impact on what poor parking does to traffic. Merchants Alley historically, up until, the past couple of years, hasn't really been an issue. So now it's been reported to us. We've been out there numerous times trying to fix it, and as the police, we have an obligation to take enforcement actions and stuff whenever we have to deal with that. So we're in a bit of a pickle there, and I don't have a great solution, unfortunately.
So I thought the whole thing was a parking lot.
It's been for decades.
Yeah, and I do think the concept of striping, which is proposed, is a really good idea. And then, if I try to walk in the merchant's shoes, there's a sign on the corner of Florida and the alley, basically, that says, "No parking beyond this point," which, if I reverse the logic on that, it implies, oh, I can park behind this sign. So, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to clarify, what do we need to do from a safety standpoint, to accommodate, the use of this travel way through, an important mercantile area, but also, figure out what's, reasonable in terms of parking. I visited the site now 2 or 3 times myself, and, I have a Highlander, which is not that big, and I still have a hard time getting through there.
I don't think that there's one of our departments here, so for maybe the community center down there, that hasn't had a crash down there themselves. The police have had a crash. I was actually there when I was patrol sergeant, one of my officers hit an area down through there. Our fire department has, our town works has. Safety is the issue that we're running into.
Right.
And with our ordinances written the way that they are currently now, saying that it is illegal to park anywhere on a city street. That is a city street, and even though parking has been allowed there for years, I wouldn't say allowed, it's happened, and I gave an explanation earlier, said that, nobody really goes around inspecting their gutters until you start having a leak.
Right.
And when you start having a leak, then it can end up, eroding your foundation of your home. So, but once that leak is noticed, and then you start looking at all the things that can happen, then we need to start working on it. And that's kind of, we don't go around, we're not the parking Nazis. We will. If there is a complaint or a safety issue, we deal with it.
Yeah.
But once that complaint or safety issue has been brought to our attention,
You're obligated to deal with it.
We are obligated by law to take care of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not wanting to just arbitrarily write a ton of tickets and make those 5 or 6, 7 business owners very upset about not being able to park.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, we have to go by the law.
So am I understanding correctly today that all of that is supposed to be a no parking zone? Is that correct?
According to our town ordinances, there's no parking allowed on any city street, the travel thoroughfare of our street.
Yeah. And Peter and I talked about this last night. We really do not want delivery trucks blocking Main.
Absolutely.
You know, I travel Main Street, our son works at Publix, I travel Main Street between 6 and 6:30 in the morning. And, you know, I see delivery trucks, you know, for Twisted Laurel and other eateries parked on, you know, in the parking spaces along there. And so, you know, it's still very safe. But then, you know, that's before sunup. And then, you know, when business, you know, fires up in our town, those places are not available.
Well, one thing I want to make sure is that we create or permit deliveries in that area. So if it was I don't know, you come up with the amount of time that is appropriate, that we can have deliveries, loading or unloading from those businesses so that they can still get their deliveries in a safe way, in a timely way. But I also know that Mr. Penley was concerned with the letter he sent to council, was that when the cars are parked up and down through there, then a 52-foot trailer is sitting there in front of his parking lot where his customers can't ingress or egress out of the laundromat to get in and out. So, you know, it's really a difficult situation where we do need to make sure we have room for deliveries, but the cars that are parked there are really what's maybe the issue of being able to have a safe place for delivery. So if the cars were not parked along there, then we could have a trailer parked there for 30 minutes or ever how long to do the delivery. Or if, you know, somebody needed to load or unload some pottery or other items from their particular business, they certainly could come there and do the load and unload. But when they bring their vehicles there and leave them there, then that's what the issue is creating. Am I understanding correctly? Okay. So when we have an ordinance, you guys are sworn by law to uphold the laws and ordinances of this town. And so are we as a council. And so we have to give you support to do your job, because it's really unfair for us to ask you to do something that by law you're supposed to be doing. So I want to make it very clear that I support you enforcing the ordinances, but I think maybe we need to have a period of time where we can allow an adjustment for the business owners to say maybe August 1st, or y'all pick a day that starting this day we will start enforcing, and give them time to adjust and you know, understand what that's going to mean and how they can navigate their own deliveries and things of that nature. So I wouldn't want it to start tomorrow, because I do want to give them ample time to get used to that idea. But I also think it might behoove us to make that a one-way street, where we don't have things going back and forth, especially if we have delivery trucks going there, and we can make it a one-way street. Another safety issue in that street itself is we don't have an adequate signage for it where to stop. So if someone's going down Merchants Alley and it intersects there at Central Avenue, there's no stop sign, but there's really no place to put a stop sign that won't be run over by somebody parking at the laundromat or whatever. So, you know, I think there's a lot of challenges there to make sure that we can adequately stripe a stopping space. And I don't know what, you know, legally we would need to do to make it safe and enforceable for you guys. But I do think that we have a lot of potential there to make that area much safer.
Absolutely. I think the town council could do a lot of different things in that area, and we'll support. I mean, obviously, we'll do whatever the town council wants us to do. The problem we're running into is that we're being asked to enforce law, but just not right over there. You know, just and that opens up a gray area that we do not want to work in.
Yeah.
The chief's made it very clear she doesn't want to work in gray areas, and so I'm just had to go in that. As far as getting feedback from the police department as far as what can be done or any type of time limit, I would refer back to the chief when she gets back on that.
Mhm.
I'm sure she could probably brainstorm and answer those type of questions. So the main thing we just want to do is make sure that our concerns was being heard about. There's enforcement needing to be done,
Mhm.
or there is a change of ordinance that needs to be done.
Mhm. Right, and so we as a council have to determine, do we want to give these guys permission to enforce the ordinances that are there? Or do we need to change the ordinance? I mean, that's kind of what we're faced with.
Or change the design of the road, like you were suggesting, like the one-way idea.
But even with a one-way idea, Mark, if we have a delivery truck there that's a 52-foot trailer, you still can't pass two cars, you know, with that delivery truck sitting there. And so I think from a safety standpoint, if we made that a one-way street and the delivery truck can come and get on, let's say, the left side of the road to do their deliveries, that would leave the right lane open for one lane of traffic to go through, to where you still wouldn't have this, you know, two cars trying to get up there at the same time.
Right, that's, yeah, the one way. So I was there, I went by there this weekend and just kind of looked around, and it is tight, there's a lot of cars there. There's a lot of signage that says, you know, reserved parking, whatever. But I did notice that some of the businesses do have some faintly old marked parking spaces. And so I was a little confused as to, like, with the striping, what exactly the design of that striping would look like. And so
Then what type of stripe, are you talking about striping?
the road striping,
For no parking.
Striping it for no parking, are you talking about striping it for two-way traffic? Are you talking about striping it for loading zone, non-unloading zone?
that's, I mean, what in the packet, the proposal was to restripe the road. And I don't know what that restriping looks like. And so I would love to have a map that shows exactly what's proposed as far as like the striping on the road. Then we could share that with the business owners and then potentially have a collaborative discussion. Maybe we can think about re-imaging this alleyway, like Jennifer mentioned, potentially going to one way, if that's an idea, or just kind of sort of let's think about what would work best here before we do any actual like changes to the striping of the road. So,
Well, I do think that the restriping would at least encourage, if there were to be any kind of parking or delivery drop-off, it would be with the lane of travel, or at least parallel to it. I'm looking at the picture,
yeah, those.
and these, you know, these diagonal parking is just, that's unacceptable.
But so right
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
those diagonals, there's actual paint that shows parking
That's
spaces.
what we would need to restripe,
But
because
there-
that's where the issue is.
But if you look at the property lines, and I know there's a map somewhere with the property lines on there, their property lines only come a little ways out. It's not even the width of a car
Right.
distance for them to have
Yeah.
their,
Much like those signs that are there that say reserved for, those are not official
Right.
signs.
no,
So-
they're
I
not
think
legal
the part,
signs.
the striping possibly was maybe not.
And
official.
So that's where I'm seeking clarity of exactly like, okay, what does this striping look like? Like what's gained, what's lost? And then we have that discussion with the business owners, and then we think about some ideas. I think making that a one-way is a fantastic idea. I think we could also potentially even include maybe closing, there's been that talk of closing that stretch of Florida to make a little pedestrian plaza. If we close that bit too, it just naturally makes a flow of traffic that's less confusing and like chaotic. Essentially, we would then just force a flow of traffic in a one-way direction that would, I mean, hopefully resolve a lot of issues and potentially still allow maybe some of those parking spots, maybe not. I don't know, but
So technically, like I said, there are no parking spots.
okay,
Technically.
okay.
Right now.
Even if it was a one-way, there couldn't be like linear.
You could allow that.
Yeah.
Town council, that's what we were looking
Right.
for clarification.
Right.
Now, we'll be happy to be part of that process.
Sure.
Of brainstorming ideas, but that's part of what we're looking for is
Right.
is guidance from you guys.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, there are no official parking spots on Merchant.
Okay.
There are lots of people parking.
Right.
You can see
Yeah.
on Merchant Ave.
Right.
So,
Well, I think making sure that these shop owners can get their deliveries is gonna be a priority of mine, because I would certainly hate for, number one, them to not be able to get their deliveries, but I also would not want Main Street to be congested from a truck sitting there trying to do deliveries at any time of day.
I think you guys did like a loading zone right there in front of, Dental Library.
Yes.
I guess. I know that there's things like that here in town to do
Yes,
that.
yes.
Right.
And
The
so-
Merchants Alley would be the obvious choice to do that over Main Street, and that's what Phil and I were talking
Yeah.
about.
Correct.
Yeah. One-way loading zones and,
That could work. Now, I don't think we're ever gonna close down Florida, by the way. I mean, we might narrow it and take those parking spots.
I don't know, looks like Wellbred owns halfway into the roadway, so maybe if Wellbred claimed rights, they would shut down the road for us.
There's some natural
It's a town road.
distortion with
I know, I'm
I don't
just,
think it's gonna
I
happen.
know.
But,
Well, let's never say never. I mean, I've got a vision,
okay.
but,
I would like, before we start closing any of these discussions, I mean, I see several of the merchants from Main Street, who I believe they're interested in this topic of conversation. I want to invite them to speak up and, because I'm curious, did they know that there was parking available in the churches for their employees that may have never been conveyed? Two, who is parking back there? Is it just people that are going to Zebulon, or is it actually being used by their businesses? I don't know.
It was designed, and from my understanding, again, it was prior to my arrival, but the town approached the churches for employees to be able to park there.
Right.
And there was 60 spots set aside for business owner employees.
And
Well,
that was a while back.
I'd like the business owners to be able to speak and tell us what their thoughts are. They're here.
Yeah, if anybody'd like to come
Anybody
up.
like to come up? Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and footnote to Peter's comments, I understand that there was a decision made not to create new signage, on the church lots, with that agreement, according to Mr. Pennell, at the time the decision was made. So this was an agreement between the town and the churches that was to be communicated to the Main Street employees, in what I would call a closed circle communication. It wasn't gonna be public.
And it was my understanding that that did happen through the WBA and then also letters
Yeah.
delivered to the businesses, but that's also been many, many
been
years
several
ago.
years.
Yeah.
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 Hi.
Hi.
My name's Amy Spooner. I'm the owner of Artisans on Main. I rent that space. I do not own that space. And I think where my frustration lies, and I'll just get that out of the way, is communication. I think in order for this town, obviously, we have a parking issue. We have a population growth, which is amazing. And we, the business owners, want to keep Main Street thriving, so people want to come here and visit here. And my struggle with the parking is you're going to take between 12 and 14 spots, and now we're going to take those up at the church. So if the church eventually becomes public parking, now we have 14 of our people plus who will be taking up those spots. I was not made aware of this meeting. The only way I was made aware of this meeting was by my business neighbor, Rob Mangum. I reached out to my landlord. He wasn't made aware of this business, or of this meeting. And so, again, I think communication through all of this is gonna be super important. I'm willing to say that my big old truck has probably stuck out a little too far on Merchants Alley. I did have Kyle come tell me one time, a long time ago. But because of that, the way that Artisans is set up, I park on the far left spot, so I'm able to come in as far as I can. With that, there has not been an issue until my business neighbor across the way has had some cars parked on the diagonal too. That's where the bottleneck is. So I realize that my section of the street is part of the problem, and I'm happy to have conversations about it, but it was not made aware to me or my employees that we could park in the church. Days, for instance, like today, when there was a deluge out, you're asking people to walk 4 blocks in the pouring rain. A lot of my employees carry things, pottery, jewelry supplies, stuff like that. So I'm open to a conversation, but I really do. We have 2 striped spots. We have been guilty of cramming 3 cars in there. I have had a conversation with my employees, and we are not gonna do that anymore. So, but we do have 2 designated spots, all but maybe 18 inches fit within my property line, in accordance with Rob's property line. Like, we kind of went down and looked, and those spots fall within our property. So, that's all I have to say about that, and I would love to figure out a solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Spooner, I appreciate your comments, and, you know, one of the things I do want to make sure that we provide for you is a way for you to unload and reload your goods, because it is, you know, a lot of those things are fragile, and I don't in any way want to create a situation where you don't have a way to deliver or pick up your items. So I want to make sure that we do have a safe place for you to do that.
Yes, and I will say, more is gonna fall on the business owners. For instance, if a UPS truck is not able to easily get in and out, I'm gonna get a notification that I have to go pick it up over, and that creates more work for me.
Exactly.
So, I don't love that idea. I understand that it can happen. But again, communication with parking, just from events previously happening earlier this month, and the businesses will be very, very helpful to me
Yeah,
as a business
I agree
owner.
that we've had some challenges with communication, so I'm glad that we're having this
Yeah.
conversation today, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys. You know, when I first moved into my building, the police department was back there. And the police used to park outside of their building, sticking out into the alley. And they would wash their cars out there. And you know, and like Andy said, you know, it's been a custom that's been, you know, that we've been doing for many years. And we have just recently run into some issues with it because of you know, the Artisans on Main and the therapy office and Dennis, you know, has gotten annoyed by that. What's happened with the therapy office is that they're allowing customer parking there, and that's the first time we've ever had that in the alley, is that the therapy office is allowing for customer parking. And they've had customers with really long trucks that literally are sticking halfway out into the alley. And so, like Andy said, I mean, really, this is nothing that's ever been a problem, and so it's never been needed to be addressed. And now we do have, you know, something that needs to be addressed. I actually, I did go over and I talked to Amy about how, you know, when Leah Baker first came there, she was putting, you know, because the town did those stripes. Actually, Shelby Shields, when I first came to town, Shelby told me, you know, she goes, oh yeah, those are your parking spaces because they're on your property. And actually, I let her park in one of those spots, the one that I keep my minivan in, for many years while they were still there. But the town did that striping for, you know, for those businesses. And but we have and now what's happened is Dennis has gotten really angry because of this customer parking that's happening for the therapy office. I actually called and talked to Nate Day today about it, because Nate's the guy that owns that property, and let him know that really that has been the catalyst for all of this discussion. If that hadn't have happened, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Dennis got out there and tried to put a cone right on the corner of his property to keep those customers from parking, you know, onto his property there and out into the alley. And they moved it, and so he screwed them down, and then they ran over it. And so, you know, hopefully, you know, by my you know, talking to Nate, that maybe they will stop allowing customer parking there. I mean, that's really is what has happened here. I don't really have a prepared statement about this, but I would like to see some sort of discussion happen, you know, before we start going and issuing tickets to people for parking in the spaces. Especially, I mean, I do, you know, own property. I could parallel park behind my building and be within my property. But I mean, a lot of those other businesses that park along there, and that is I really do think that probably a one-way street might be, you know, a good solution, as painful as it might be. It might be a good solution, and I would actually like to see possibly marked loading zones along the back where the people have been parking, maybe as like half-hour parking, you know, for loading zone kind of thing. So that, because all of those businesses need to use it. I mean, Steve's back there, you know, he's doing his cabinet business, he's back there. Sometimes it takes him more than a half an hour, maybe it should be 1 hour, I don't know, I mean, but it needs to be a discussion. But as far as, you know, when the delivery trucks, I mean, I personally think one of the most, as far as public safety is concerned, one of the worst public safety issues we have with the alley is that people try to use it as a thoroughfare. The people think of it as a two-way street. People haul down that thing. I've seen people going 45 miles an hour down through the alley. And people are trying to avoid Main Street. And so they're trying to cut through the neighborhood to try to like get somewhere faster. And people drive really fast down the alley. And I personally think that if it was marked off as a two-way street, that would make that worse. The alley would be a less safe place. I think that's one reason why I'm thinking that possibly making it into a one-way street so that people don't try to use it. And we're not trying to acknowledge it as a two-way street for people trying to commute through Weaverville. I think that, you know, designated, it's called Merchants Alley for a reason, you know, and I think that there are times where delivery trucks block up the alley and it's a pain in the butt for everyone. But, I mean, it's what we have, and it's what it's what keeps the delivery trucks off of Main Street. And I think we want to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I appreciate you guys' time.
Rob, which way would be one way to
I kind
you?
of personally think south to
South.
north. South to north, like from Central to Florida would be the best, and that way, you know, we have we put signage at the top that allows it. We have, there's some other issues with the delivery trucks, like, you know, Allen doesn't want, you know, there's a problem with 18-wheelers trying to take a left onto Alabama off of Florida, you know, I mean, it could be possibly made to where, we could possibly make it to where there are no vehicles over 2 axles in the alley. Like if a company wants to make a delivery, Cisco wants to deliver to the, they can't bring an 18-wheeler in there. And that way they can go north, they can take a left, and they can take that left onto Alabama without, you know, getting stuck there and tearing up the grass. And like, you know, I mean, I think there are several things. I think we can make it work. You know, if we have if we open a line of discussion, I would be more than willing to participate in some sort of a subcommittee or whatever that wants to talk about, you know, potentials for designs, you know, and I also think that that we could probably get the businesses that are involved to sign off on you know, try to find something that everyone's happy with, you know. And like, I mean, we want to make sure Dennis is happy. We want to make sure Alan's happy. We want to make sure that everybody's, you know, happy with whatever solution we come up with.
Yeah, I think we can come up with a good solution that works for everybody, that's enforceable for the police department, and we can get behind them to do the proper enforcement. You know, in no way do I want this to be a hardship on the merchants, but we want to make sure that it is a safe place for traffic to come through and a safe place for your deliveries to be done. So I think there's some good potential there that we can work together to make a good pass through there. Thank you for your comments.
Just for the record purposes, this was Rob Mangum of Mangum Pottery, just speaking to us.
How you doing? I'm Steve Quinn, owner of 22 North Main, WNC Cabinet Solutions,
Blue Ridge Properties
Blue Ridge
Group.
Properties Group. Our back door accesses that alley. We do park back there, my wife does. As far as making the road one way, we get deliveries of kitchen cabinets and vanities and stuff. They come on 18-wheelers sometimes. They back down the alley from the laundromat way. We unload, get them into the building, then we bring different trucks in, smaller trucks, to ship them out into residential areas. Making the road one way, I understand, but then it's gonna divert traffic. How do these big trucks get in there to make these deliveries to any of the businesses? Because then they have to get you to go out Florida to Alabama. I think the business owners need to get together. And I think Weaverville's just lost their patience. Years ago, everybody would stop, wave, do whatever. Now, it's a big,
Everybody's in a hurry.
in a hurry. And they're looking to cut through, like Rob said, the alley, and I mean, they absolutely fly down that back alley, whether they have to wash clothes or what they have to do. But does something need to be done? Most likely, yes.
I certainly understand that flying down there, because I think what happens a lot, I've just noticed this from sitting on the porch at Illuvium, is people come down Florida, hit that do not enter sign, don't understand, what, I can't go to get to Main Street, and so what they do is they just funnel right down Merchants Alley.
Or
and
they
they're-
go
and they're
straight,
mad.
or they go straight
Right.
through that.
Oh,
sign.
God, yeah.
Exactly, that's even worse.
I mean, you
It's
can
a
sit
game
there on
how
the
many
corner
people
and
will
just
go the
see
wrong way.
people just go, they totally ignore that one-way sign. So I'm against doing it one way because there's already total, people are adverse to, they're just ignoring those signs. And a one-way sign, I mean, one way this way, you can't go that way, one way you can't go this way. People are gonna ignore that. They already do it. We stand there and we see it all the time.
And I know my trucks can't get off of Florida and turn behind the Merchants Alley. They have to back up from,
Central.
From Central.
And
So this issue really didn't start till about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, when, as Rob put it, the customers for the therapy session started parking, and it was one person with one long, well, you saw the picture. It was the white truck with the long bed, and truck was really interloping into the middle of Merchant Alley. And then there was another car behind Artisans that was parking to where I couldn't get my car through, people couldn't get their cars through. And Dennis was standing there, very upset with people. And it was, this all has come about just recently, as Andy said. This is not a recent issue. This is not the first time I have been in front of the council. I was here in the early 1990s about Merchant Alley. I was here in the late 1990s, and here I am again, 26 years later, same discussion. And back then it was all, again, because one person was complaining because the police cars were doing exactly what this white truck is doing, because the police station used to be back there. I used to own the building at 18 North Main, where 4 Cent Cotton Cafe was. I owned it there for 10 years. Some of you remember that. Now I own 22 North Main. 26 years later, 36 years later, same issue, same thing. It was one person blocking it and has caused this whole thing. It's not right to the people, to the business owners, and it really would have been nice if it had been communicated to us, the business owners. I found out about it today, midday, about this. I had to cancel appointments for this evening for showing properties to be here tonight. That was not fair. Lack of communication from the board to the business owners, that we pay taxes to this town, is just, it's just unfair.
So in defense of the sequence, I think, this agenda item basically was for a discussion in terms of what next steps to do to engage the merchants. So, I don't think there was any intent to basically, sequester this topic.
We don't know
No,
that.
we don't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking for some amnesty here because, these things pop up during the week and then, we put them on our agenda so we can try to deal with them. And as you've heard, there's lots of willingness now to
Oh,
get
yes, and we're
everybody
willing,
together.
we definitely want to work, and we want
Yes.
we want everybody to be happy,
Yeah.
but
So, as business owners, we want all the businesses to be profitable and to flourish.
Absolutely.
You know, and make this town what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we all agree with that. So in no way are we trying to hinder that. As far as the agenda goes, we get our agenda by noon on Friday. That's when we find out what's on the agenda. So it's not like it's something that we've been planning for a
Well,
while.
that explains a lot.
So, you know, we don't have a lot of foresight as to what's gonna be on the agenda because that's set by the mayor. And so we get in on Friday and we read over our agenda packet over the weekend, and here we are on Monday night. But I'm sure, I think that all of this came about, you know, because we did have some concerns of safety and, you know, traffic issues going on Merchants Alley. And then the police department gets involved, and then they're struggling with, you know, we have an ordinance that says we don't have any parking on the street, and this is a street, and we have parking on it. So then we have an ordinance.
Or is it an alley?
It doesn't matter, it's still property of the town's roadways. And so then we have an issue
It
with
does
the
have
police.
sidewalk, are y'all gonna put sidewalks in if you're gonna make it like one way or?
That, we could stripe some sidewalks maybe.
Yeah.
But we have an issue with an ordinance that is being violated. And so we have to make a decision, are we going to give support to our police department to enforce an ordinance that we have on the books? Or do we need to relook and change the ordinance? Really, that's what this council is gonna talk about, is how do we make this ordinance work? And how do we make it work best for the property owners, the business owners? How do we make it doable with the police department? Andy, I think you want to say something?
To be clear,
You need to come to the mic.
And, Sarge, come up front so it can be part of it.
Let's make it clear.
correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, but we haven't issued any citations up there since this has come about. I mean, we are aware that this is an issue, and it's been an issue, and that it's a touchy situation. So that's why there hasn't been any citations just blindly handed out. That's why we're asking for guidance from the council. Council looks like they're asking for guidance from the community. So, you know, we're all just
We're
trying
here to work together.
Yeah, trying to just work together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please don't start writing tickets, no. I said, please don't start writing tickets, no. I don't think that's the solution.
No,
to
but I will
anything.
say, when an ordinance is adopted, that we will expect our officers to enforce that ordinance, whatever it is. We want to make sure it's a fair ordinance for the business owners and for the safety of the town. And that's what we're looking for. And we, of course, want to engage the business owners to help make that the best it can be for everybody.
And I know all the business owners will do whatever you all decide.
I just, my opinion is it does not need to be a one-way, given what we always witness, or we're constantly witnessing already on Florida. People just
So-
totally ignore that one way.
Let me ask a question of the police department. If that is a delivery zone and it's an 18-wheeler and they have to back up, let's say it's coming from north to south, the road, the one-way street going north to south, and that truck has to back in, is that violation of that ordinance from it going, if it's a one-way street? If they're backing in to do a delivery? Is that something that's gonna be a problem?
If they're backing in the wrong direction.
Hey, Cap, you don't need to speak into the mic for the record itself, so we can document the minutes.
And-
Thank you.
And they may need to see what the layout, the configuration is before they can really answer that anyway. Is it
Whenever we
back-
go to a wreck, you have two different people at least that's saying two different things.
Correct.
You have vehicle evidence that's showing one thing. You may, if you're lucky, have a third-party witness or a camera that will actually tell you the truth. But up until, like, we kind of get those things, it's hard to tell, but the potential is there.
Okay.
That it could be a safety issue, but again, I'm sorry, I wish I had a more clear answer.
Okay. So we're just trying to troubleshoot here.
Yeah, and how the ordinance may be written and what's allowed for in those roadways. So.
Okay, thank you.
It seems like council has some work, or staff has some work in terms of developing a site plan with some proposed, and then we open this up for more discussion, maybe in another workshop. maybe next month. Is that too far out?
With, obviously with, business.
Yes, yes.
I do have one other question. Mr. Eller, could you help us understand the property lines of that alley?
To answer your question, I'll give it a good honest effort. What's on the screen, and unfortunately just off the screen, this is a street map of all the downtown roads from 1946. The area that we're zoomed in on here, pardon me while I jump to the screen, you can see Merchants Alley identified right here, shown as a 20-foot right-of-way. Merchants Alley, 20-foot right-of-way. I speak in generalities here. I'll talk about the north half of the block. It's pretty easy to deduce that those buildings were built to the property line on both sides of the street. There's roughly 20 to 21 feet between those walls. As we drift south to what I'll call the south part of the block, there is an impingement. How much that is precisely, I don't know, because these surveys of these properties go back to the early 1900s. If the question is, does there exist enough area, either diagonal or parallel, to park out of the right-of-way?
Yes, that's my question.
I do not believe that to be the case, but I cannot answer that definitively without a survey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, agenda item number 5, closed session. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just for the record, first on the parking, and the business does not know about it.
Mr. Allen, state your name and stuff. so she
Oh,
can capture
sorry,
the minutes. Thank you.
Alan Shepard, 100 Central Avenue, actually now in Alabama now.
Thank you.
As far as the business parking, I can tell you by owning the Shope's property now and having my 42 parking spaces violated like a cheap woman, every day, there's 3 businesses that are not even present here today that everybody thinks if they cross over the road after parking in my parking lot and they don't look at me in the eye, they can continue to walk down and then walk down the alley to the businesses that are there and go in the back door. So there's a lot of that goes on. Most businesses in this town do not know about the church parking lot, because when I tell somebody after I've already been cussed out because I'm telling them to move out of the parking lot and they could go to the church. But the problem is, even if they go to the church, they're too lazy to walk down the street, so they fill up the parking lot, or they fill up Alabama Avenue up in front of the church, in front of the, like say, the Canowers that are sitting here tonight, which you got young children, blah, blah, blah. There's other young children moving in on the neighborhood too now. And they're basically the employees. I understand what the woman said about having to carry goods in. I have 6 employees that work at Finkelstein's in downtown on Broadway. I spend $165 a month per employee to provide them parking at the Biltmore deck, which is a lot further walk than this right here. And they walk rain or shine, they do whatever they gotta do to get to work. But I pay for their but I do pay for their spaces. I've got pictures that if anybody wants to see them, I'll be happy to share, because I'm the parking police right now. You behind Dennis Finley, of course. And, but there's days that there's only 1 car parked in the church parking lot up here behind the church, 1. And I've brought it to some people's attention, and I'll just call it what it is. 2 employees that work at the bakery parking that alley every day, open to close. I can tell you the car, the brand, the tag number, and who it is driving the car. And I chase them out of my parking lot finally. And if they don't think I'm around, they still park my parking lot if they can't find one of the first 3 spaces on the right-hand side coming into Florida Avenue. So that's the problem right now, is we have employees that either aren't listening to their owners and their bosses, or the business doesn't know, like this young lady didn't know.
Right.
So, you know, they striped all those parking spots back there in the back on the church. They're all yellow. But I will bet $1,000 to a donut tomorrow there will not be 1 employee parked back there. So if we can address that. As far as one-way dealing with traffic up here, I'm totally opposed to dumping any more traffic onto Alabama Avenue. Of course, I live there, but probably the Canowers, they were here tonight, you know. But, you know, we already have traffic on Alabama now because, of course, nobody's traveling Main Street. So all the trucks have to come in and out, even though that there is no through truck signs on each side of that highway or up and down that road. But the tractor trailers come up and down that way anyway. If you do decide to make Florida one way, I would rather be going off onto Main Street because I've already repaired that awning that I put on Chopes. I've already repaired it twice from trucks coming around that corner, cutting it too short, and they just ripped the whole side of my awning on the side of the building. So, and as far as the traffic up there in the alley, I have to agree with the owners of the businesses back there. It's always been that way. The other side of it is, I think that you've got one brewery there now. He also approaches out into the alley during his business hours. And then there has been, some other people that's kind of pushed out on that. But if y'all look at doing one way, you got to remember that street's only 20. If you decide to put parking on either side, you're either going to block Cole's doors, the therapist, whatever she is, which she always runs in my parking lot. I'll call her out tonight. And but you're going to block doors on one side of that alley or not, because you've only got 20 feet, and you've got to be able to swing a door. And all business doors swing out for your fire safety. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thanks.
As Alan mentioned, I'm Matthew Knauer, a resident of Alabama Avenue as well. I'm neighbors with Alan, lived here 25 years. And I would just ask the town, as they consider this, to consider what the impact would be onto Alabama, Florida, and Georgia with any rerouting. Obviously, the lower half of Alabama, below Georgia, south towards central, is already very narrow. And I think the residents there enjoy the fireworks and the road being tight a couple times a year. But additional traffic on that stretch, particularly where the road isn't wider and there aren't designated spaces, would put a lot of pressure on that end of the neighborhood. From a safety standpoint, with, again, families, a lot of walkers there, I will also agree that there is maybe one car behind the church a day. So I think there's a ton of education that can be gained by employees of those businesses making the extra 5-minute walk, getting to walk, work a little earlier, bringing an umbrella if they need to. It's not that far. But very rarely are there cars behind the church, the Presbyterian church. And most of those employees that do park on that street are then parking in the marked spaces, which I think are really designed for either the residents of the homes or for folks coming down to enjoy the businesses and walk the neighborhood as you all would want, as we would want. So oftentimes, most of the spots in front of the Presbyterian church office, and then again, stacked kind of into non-marked spaces, what would be behind the Weaver House, and whatever we're calling that lot is, the parking lot that's not a parking lot, that is a parking lot, stack up there, and I can promise you those cars are parked for 8 to 10 hours a day, all day, every day. Again, with Alan, I could give you tag numbers, vehicle makes, models, and they sit there all day long taking up those spots. When just another 150 yards away are plenty of spaces available for use. And so I think there is some common sense solution here to educate some people and maybe do some striping first before we talk about further steps that would be, again, cost effective and help everyone in that whole multi-block area have a better experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody coming out and speaking tonight. I'm assuming everybody's good out there. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a closed session.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Council, you are asked to go into closed session under pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with an attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege, which is hereby acknowledged, and to give instructions on the handling of a claim, and under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to review and discuss confidential personnel matters.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Aye. How does this feel?